A rock, a mirror, a doll, ordinary objects, right? But throughout history, humans have treated simple things as if they carried the weight of the universe. A stick becomes a wand. A bowl becomes holy. A mirror becomes a doorway to another world. Why? Because humans hate the idea that reality is boring. We take the ordinary and dress it up in meaning until it glows with power. Beliefs, rituals, even entire religions have been built on objects so mundane you probably have them in your living room. This video is about those objects, ordinary things that shaped extraordinary beliefs. By the end, you'll never look at your keys, your cup, or even your shoes the same way again. Number 9. Pick up a rock today, and it's just a rock. Maybe you skip it across a lake or stub your toe on it. But for ancient humans, stones weren't background noise, they were cosmic USB drives, holding divine power. Across cultures, rocks became sacred. The black stone in Mecca, meteorites worshipped by ancient tribes, or Stonehenge towering like a prehistoric calendar. These weren't just pretty pebbles, they were proof that the earth or the heavens spoke through solid matter. A meteorite wasn't space junk, it was a literal message from the gods. Why rocks? Because they outlasted us. In a world where everything rotted, burned, or blew away, stones stayed. Their permanence whispered eternity. If you wanted to anchor your beliefs, you didn't carve them into paper, you carved them into stone. Even today, the impulse lingers. We put gravestones over the dead, crystals on our shelves, diamonds on our fingers. Rocks still tell stories of love, of memory, of power. So while you treat stones like landscaping, your ancestors saw them as sacred contracts. To them, picking up the right rock wasn't play, it was a brush with eternity. Number 8. Most of us use mirrors to check if we have spinach in our teeth. But for centuries, mirrors weren't about vanity, they were doorways. Reflections were thought to reveal the soul, or worse, to trap it. In ancient Mexico, obsidian mirrors were used by shamans to see into other worlds. In Europe, people covered mirrors when someone died, fearing the spirit might get stuck inside. Even today, horror movies cash in on the same fear. Bloody Mary doesn't appear in the sink, she appears in the mirror. Why mirrors? Because they lie. You look at one and see yourself, but reversed, flattened, untouchable. To early humans, that was terrifying. Was it you, or a ghost pretending to be you? The reflection felt alive, uncanny, a reminder that reality might have cracks. And the belief never really died. Feng Shui warns about mirrors facing beds. Folklore still whispers about smashing one bringing 7 years of bad luck. We don't admit we believe it, but most people still hesitate before chanting in a dark bathroom. So next time you casually check your hair, remember, to your ancestors, you just touched a portal. And maybe, just maybe, something looked back. Number 7. Today, dolls are plastic toys that end up decapitated in a toy box. But to your ancestors, dolls weren't playthings, they were vessels. Tiny bodies meant tiny spirits, and that made them powerful. In ancient Egypt, figurines were buried with the dead to serve as helpers in the afterlife. In Japan, dolls were believed to absorb misfortune, so families would place them in shrines or float them down rivers to carry away bad luck. And in some parts of Africa, carved figures were treated like legal contracts, witnesses imbued with spiritual authority. Why dolls? Because they look almost human, but not quite. That almost is unsettling. Our brains can't help but project life into them. And once you believe an object can hold life, it can hold blame, hope, or fear. Fast forward to today, and the belief hasn't vanished, it just wears a different mask. Horror films with haunted dolls still terrify us. So while you might see a doll as Barbie or a collectible Funko Pop, your ancestors saw a potential roommate from the spirit world. Number 6. Shoes today are fashion flexes, sneakers worth a paycheck, heels designed by sadists. But in the past, shoes weren't just accessories. They were symbols of fate, freedom, and even curses. In medieval Europe, people hid shoes inside walls of houses to ward off evil spirits. Archaeologists still find them, dusty sneakers of the 1500s, planted like magical landmines. In Jewish tradition, removing a shoe sealed or broke contracts, as if the shoe itself carried the weight of the promise. And in folk tales worldwide, shoes were destiny. Think of Cinderella's glass slipper or 7-league boots. Why shoes? Because they touched the earth. They were the bridge between humans and the dangerous world below. Every step was symbolic: your path, your fortune, your life's direction. Control the shoe, control the journey. Even today, echoes linger. Throwing shoes over power lines sparks urban myths. Tossing an old shoe at someone is still considered a grave insult in many cultures. So the next time you lace up your sneakers, remember, you're not just walking. You're stepping into a tradition where shoes decided fate, sealed deals, and maybe even kept demons outside the door. Number 5. Keys today just jingle in your pocket, unlocking doors or maybe starting your car. But for most of history, keys weren't just metal, they were symbols of power, authority, and magic. In ancient Rome, keys were offered to household gods as a prayer for protection. In medieval Europe, brides carried keys as signs of trust and prosperity. Keys represented control over not just doors, but destinies. If you held the key, you decided who entered, who stayed out, and who was trapped. Locks, too, became more than tools. Folklore saw them as charms. Lovers locked their promises with padlocks on bridges, a ritual still alive today. Witches were believed to curse enemies by binding locks, sealing misfortune as tightly as iron. Why keys? Because they're liminal. They exist at the threshold between inside and outside, safety and danger, freedom and prison. So next time you mindlessly toss your keys on the counter, remember, you're holding a relic once thought to open not just doors, but the hidden chambers of fate. Number 4. A cup today is just something you forget to wash until mold starts growing. But throughout history, cups and vessels were never just dishes, they were sacred containers of life, luck, and even immortality. The most famous, of course, is the Holy Grail, supposedly the cup that caught Christ's blood, transforming a drinking vessel into the ultimate symbol of divine mystery. In ancient Greece, libation bowls were used to pour offerings to the gods. In many cultures, clay pots were buried with the dead, ensuring the soul had supplies for the afterlife. Why cups? Because they hold empty or full, fragile or overflowing. A cup is never neutral. To early humans, vessels mirrored life itself, sometimes brimming with fortune, sometimes cracked and cursed. Even today, we ritualize cups without realizing it. Champagne flutes at weddings, birthday candles blown out over drinks. Lucky mugs nobody dares throw away. And let's not forget fortune tellers still read destines in the muddy swirls at the bottom of coffee cups. So next time you're sipping your iced latte, remember, you're performing a ritual older than civilization. That plastic cup in your hand may look disposable, but its ancestors once held the essence of the divine. Number 3. Today, books are homework, novels have read, or coffee table props. But once upon a time, writing itself was considered sorcery. To carve words into clay or ink them on parchment was to trap invisible power in physical form. In ancient Egypt, scribes were revered almost like priests. They believed hieroglyphs weren't just symbols, they carried the essence of what they described. To write a curse was to make it real, to record a name was to grant immortality. Destroying someone's name in writing was like killing them twice. Medieval Europe carried the same reverence. Holy books weren't just read, they were worshipped, kissed, locked away in jeweled bindings. People believed certain texts could heal sickness, summon spirits, or protect homes if tucked under pillows. Why? Because writing gave permanence to thought. Spoken words vanish, written ones linger like ghosts. Even now, we treat books with a weird respect. We burn them, worship them. A signed copy feels like a relic. And every culture still has words of power, whether in prayers, mantras, or even contracts that can ruin your life. So while you may see a book as dead trees and ink, your ancestors saw a spellbook, ordinary pages holding extraordinary power. Number 2. Food is fuel today. Snacks, fast meals, energy bars. But for most of history, food wasn't just nutrition, it was a bridge to the divine. Ordinary bread, salt, or wine became loaded with meaning, symbols of life, loyalty, or eternity. Take bread and wine in Christianity. Simple staples turned into the body and blood of Christ. Salt, so ordinary you spill it on fries, once sealed covenants in the Middle East. Sharing salt meant unbreakable loyalty. In Hindu rituals, rice became purity incarnate, sprinkled to bless weddings or new homes. Why food? Because it sustains life. Eating wasn't just survival, it was communion. When humans didn't understand why crops grew or failed, food seemed like a direct conversation with gods. Even now, echoes linger. We raise glasses to toast. We bake birthday cakes to mark time. We leave offerings of fruit or rice at graves. So next time you munch popcorn in front of Netflix, remember, that simple act of eating once carried the weight of eternity. Your snack was once a sacrament. Number 1. Clothes today are mostly about style or comfort. Jeans, t-shirts, or sweatpants you secretly wear 3 days in a row. But in the past, clothing was sacred. Ordinary fabric became a badge of identity, a shield of power, or a sentence of shame. Priests wore robes that symbolized divine authority. Warriors dressed in animal skins to channel the spirit of the beast. Even color-matted purple in Rome screamed royalty, while white in many cultures meant purity or death. Sometimes the symbolism was deadly. Stripped of your garments, that wasn't just humiliation, it erased your identity, making you socially invisible. Executions often began with tearing clothes away, a ritual that killed the person symbolically before the body followed. So while you see a hoodie, your ancestors might have seen a holy relic, a battle charm, or a curse in disguise. So there you have it, 9 everyday objects that shaped extraordinary beliefs. Stones that held eternity, mirrors that opened portals, dolls that carried spirits, and cups that promised immortality. To our ancestors, nothing was ordinary. Every object had weight, every tool had a soul. We like to think we've moved past this, but have we? We still treat wedding rings as eternal bonds, books as sacred, and uniforms as identity. The instinct hasn't vanished, it's just hiding under modern packaging. The truth is, humans can't stop turning objects into meaning. It's how we build cultures, myths, and stories that outlive us. If this made you see your own surroundings differently, hit like, subscribe, and stick around. Because the strangest stories aren't hidden in temples, they're sitting on your shelf.